All right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of The Teardown. My name is Jeff Gluck. I'm along with Jordan Bianchi. We are motorsports writers for The Athletic. And today we are here to talk about the Homestead Miami race. Jordan is live on site in Miami. If there was ever a Miami guy, it's Jordan Bianchi. So you must have been right at home there this weekend, Jordan. How's it going?
It's my people. I fit in right down here. They respect style. They respect culture. I'm one of them. I'm almost like a native Miamian. Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it's like my second home.
Is that? Oh, wow. Okay. Well, it's already, I right off the top of the bat this weekend, you roll in with the story about how Homestead, it looks like it could be the championship race. And then, but I'm reading the story of yours, this reporting you did. And as the story's going on, I'm getting not getting the answer I want. I thought I was going to read the story and it was going to be like, oh, and all signs are pointing toward Homestead being the championship. Like I was like, I'll be there with you next year, Jordan.
Yeah.
And then you get to this story and you talk to like the vice mayor of Homestead, and he's like, well, we were trying to put this money package together. I mean, tell us what is going on here, Jordan.
Yeah,
tell us.
NASCAR wants to be here. They would like to have their championship here, but this, at the end of the day, is also a business decision. And the city and the county, and let me say this: the city by itself can't write the check. It looked like the Super Bowl, right? Cities bid on the Super Bowl. The Arizona, Phoenix, that community is paying NASCAR essentially to have the championship at Phoenix Raceway. And so if you're going to move the championship from there, you're going to go somewhere where you're going to essentially get the same dollars, right? And so there's kind of this underground push, not even underground, I mean, it's out there, of, the community, the city of Homestead and Miami-Dade County would like to put together a financial package to entice NASCAR to have the championship at Homestead. They're working towards that. There was maybe some hope that would have come together recently. It hasn't, though, as of now. There's still an opportunity for it to happen. But as of today, the championship is not set for Homestead in 2026. We don't know where the championship is going to be, but it's not this this enthusiastic, like, hey, this is going to happen kind of thing, because we don't know. And the way things stand right now and the different events, there's so many different events going on in the next calendar year in this community that are getting financial assistance from the community. NASCAR almost has to, take a turn, if you will. And that's really hard right now to find that money to make this work. And so there's this giant question mark of whether or not the championship is going to be here or not. It's hard to say, what the odds are. The vice mayor of Homestead put it at 70-30 that it was going to happen. I've heard less than that from other people, but I've heard more optimistic from other people. And so we'll see at the end of the day if this happens. I mean, if you're asking my opinion, I think it does, but it has to make financial sense.
Okay, well, let me ask you, why does it have to make financial sense? Because, okay, listen, it's not my money to spend.
Sure.
But I don't know exactly how much money Phoenix is giving NASCAR to have the championship, but we know, for instance, that like NASCAR spends $50 million to put on the Chicago street course race. So are we talking a few $1,000,000 here? Are we talking $5-10 million? Because if that's the case, and you know that Homestead is going to be a better place for your championship and it's just waiting for the money, why does this have to be a financial decision? Because to me, it would be like, well, it's more important to have your sport end the season at a place where everybody's enthusiastic about it, incredible, and it's going to be an exciting race, that kind of stuff, versus, well, we couldn't go there because we couldn't get the few $1,000,000 that we wanted. Am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy. And I want to make sure I say this very carefully. The Homestead vice mayor told me a figure of what he had heard NASCAR was getting from the Phoenix community. He put it at between 5 and 10 million. Now, I will make sure, I have not been able to verify that at all, but that is what he says that they were getting. So I don't know that. And I'm kind of putting words in NASCAR's mouth here. It may end up being exactly what you say, where NASCAR looks at this and says, at the end of the day, this is what's best for business, for the product and for the competitiveness of the sport and the future of the sport. We need to, move this championship around. We need to go back to Homestead. Maybe it's not the deal we want. Maybe it's not a deal at all. But at the end of the day, the racing is too good there. It's too good of a show. There seems to be a groundwell of support. The crowd was good today, by the way. It wasn't a sellout, but it was a pretty decent crowd by Miami standards. And so maybe they ultimately do that. We don't know the future of Chicago. And, so maybe all of a sudden you do have a little bit more money in your coffers because you're not putting on the Chicago street course next year. Again, hypothetically. So maybe it is that situation. We don't know. But as it stands right now, the situation is Miami-Dade County is going to have to kick in something to kind of make this work. And right now they haven't done it.
Well, based on what I saw in this race today, I would say that Homestead definitely checked the box of what I'm looking for. I saw a lot of people on social media did not feel the same way necessarily, at least at certain parts of the race. But to me, this was if you are a racing purist, this was the race for you. Because you saw the fastest drivers find their way to the front with multiple racing lines, multiple strategies that all converged. It was a very green race. So the strategies were able to unfold without any cautions getting in the way. Anybody that is complaining that NASCAR has too many gimmicks, this gimmicked up sport, blah, 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 this was the answer to that. So I don't see how you could complain. If you're one of those people that says that there's too many gimmicks and all this stuff, just look at today's race. It was the pure race by NASCAR standards, about as pure as you're going to get. And I loved watching the multiple strategies play out. I loved that tires were a factor. I loved that people were trying different things, and guys were having to put it on the wall and see what they could do. And ultimately there's 27 lead changes, the second most in track history. Only last fall's Homestead race, which was a classic, had more lead changes than this. And ultimately you have somebody run a guy down and make a pass with 5 laps to go. Guy makes a mistake. To me, this is exactly why it should be the championship race, because you're seeing the best do their thing. But I guess not everybody feels the same way. How did you feel about it, Jordan?
This was a quintessential stock car race. This was fantastic. This is exactly what you want to see on an intermediate racetrack. And this is why Homestead, along with Kansas, maybe Charlotte, like those are the 3 tracks where they're going to deliver the goods, on a consistent basis. This was everything today. This had everything you laid out. It was entertaining, sure. Stage 1, I think it's fair to say, maybe wasn't the most exciting at times, but you also have to tip your hand to Ryan Blaney and say he went out there and kicked everybody's butt. And you still had an entertaining race unfolding behind him on different strategies that were going on. This was a classic old school. This was quintessential NASCAR. These kind of races is what put NASCAR on the map back in the day. And today it naturally unfolded. You got a great finish. You've got different guys, coming and going. I would be really hard pressed to look at this race and point fingers and say, oh man, this wasn't good or this was that. It's like, I don't know what to tell you. If you don't like what unfolded today, I really question why you're watching this sport in general, because this is what this sport is about, is what unfolded today.
Well, you're not getting the wrecks, right? Like, for instance, there was no multi-car incidents today. You had Christopher Bell spun onto the front stretch in stage 1. And then Ryan Blaney blew up, but that was the only caution in the final stage. There was no cautions in stage 2 at all. Now, again, I liked that because I was able to see these strategies play out, right? Like, we were able to see Larson and Hamlin run longer, and then they were able to come back through the field and make up ground under green, having slightly newer tires. They had to pay a price on the front end and sacrifice a few spots of track position, 3 to 5 spots. But then on the back end, they were charging up through the field. And you saw it work for Denny Hamlin to win stage 2 that way. So that was really exciting. I love that kind of stuff. So, but again, I think, some people have been conditioned now to not have the patience to watch the strategies unfold. And look, there's certain tracks where I don't want to see this, right? Like,
sure,
if you go
Bristol,
back to
Martinsville.
Yeah, there you go. Like, I was going to say Richmond, right? Because Richmond is a strategy race, this kind of thing. And people I'm sure would say, well, you don't talk about this way about Richmond and stuff or Martinsville. No, because that's a short track. So at a short track, I'm not expecting it to race like an intermediate. I want that to race like a short track where I want more action. I want more contact, stuff like that. Here at a mile and a half, that is supposed to be, the whole thing's supposed to be about purity and great racing and all that 100%. Stuff. And just, this is what I was looking for. This is, we talked all going into this race. Larson, is he going to be able to put it on the wall? And then, it's like late in the race, it looks like it's not going to work out for him. He loses ground on that restart. Mm-hmm. And you're like, nah, that's just, and when Bubba Wallace is leading, he's on the radio to his team and he's saying, I need more speed. I need more grip. I don't have enough right now. And it looked like, his teammate, ultimately Alex Bowman, was going to end up with the win. Bowman passed Bubba and you're like, well, I mean, there he goes. And then it just, man, like, Bowman, I think, is being too hard on himself. He says he choked it away.
Yeah, no, he did not.
You agree? Yeah, I mean,
it's hard to beat Larson here. Like he didn't choke.
Well, Larson was on the way. Larson was on his way up, and you noticed the Bowman's team comes on the radio and they say, "Hey, you might want to try running the wall because Larson's on his way." And so Bowman's like, "Okay, so he does that, and he makes contact with the wall a couple times." And you also know that Larson is charging and, he's this guy who's led the most laps of anybody at Homestead, even though he only had one Homestead win prior to today. He's in your rearview mirror and you're just trying to defend. You're trying to think about what you can do. You're trying to get aggressive, leave no distance between yourself and the wall. Makes a mistake. It makes it easier on Larson to pass than he would have. But I really do think Larson was going to track him down anyway. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe it would have been on the last two laps, but Larson had more speed at that point. It felt like to me.
I always felt like the 5 was faster. It's just the 5 didn't always have track position today. It was always kind of an uphill battle. And, we'll talk about how this race unfolded a little bit for them, but they never had complete control of this race. And that so often is the case. At Homestead is Larson usually gets the lead here and it's really hard to wrestle it away from him. And he can kind of set his pace and set his style how he wants to. He was never had to do that today. And I always thought Bowman was a sitting duck, and that's no disrespect to Bowman. It's just, this is Kyle Larson. This is Homestead. This is the 5 team. This is what they do. And you can't beat yourself up at Bowman for bouncing off the wall because every driver bounced off the wall today. And to go back to your point about the lack of cautions, and I get that, and it's short tracks. So is when you want hard physical racing on short tracks, right? But we still had hard racing today. It was like you had side by side racing. You had guys at different times doing slide jobs and racing through the corners hard. It wasn't like a slam bam physical race, but it was hard racing, and I think the fans have been so conditioned to expect maybe certain things, and it's like, that's unreasonable. And the one thing that I keep going back to is there's this clip on social media we see a lot from like the 1980, 1979, like World 600 back in the day, of like the 4 leaders exchanging the lead a bunch of times. And everyone's like, oh my God, like that's what we want our intermediate tracks to be, right? You had that today. Like you had that today in the latter laps. You had these guys throw a blanket over them, doing different things to try to get the lead and exchanging the lead. And I think it would have been even great if Blaney didn't blow up, because that would have really been interesting to see how he would have factored in on this. But this is what intermediate racing should be for NASCAR. This today. And this is the blueprint. This is the template that every other intermediate track should look at and go, that's what we want at our facility.
I think sometimes when I'm negative about the races, it's because I feel like NASCAR at times has gotten too far away from, the ability for the best guys to go out and just do their thing, and to be able to watch them put their talent on the line, and really, it's so, the cars are so similar now. And we've talked about before how when you watch the cars go around the racetrack at times, if you didn't have numbers or colors on the car, you'd be like, I don't know who's in this car. Where again, we talk about sprint car racing last week and why I like it and stuff. You don't need to be able to see when you go to sprint car race, which car is Kyle Larson necessarily sometimes, right? Because you could just be like, oh, whoa, look at that guy. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Where Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, whoever, you're watching them go around these tracks sometimes and you're just like, I mean, how do I tell who's good? How do I tell where the talent is? Today, with what you saw with Larson there at the end, and I know people are tired of him. People are tired of hearing Larson's, such a great driver. You saw his ability. His ability took over. His ability to run the wall took over. And he won that race himself. He put it on his back. So sometimes I think that's good for everybody to see that. Like, oh yeah, like the drivers can make a difference, right? Like that's what we want to see. Even though the cars are so equal, and we hear about that all the time. But I think it's good for everybody to recognize, like, okay, you might go, oh, Larson win. Geez. Oh gosh. And I saw people yesterday, people were cheering. Some people on social media were cheering the end of the Xfinity race that he lost because they're like, thank goodness we don't have to hear about this 3-race weekend sweep. Thank goodness.
It's a thing.
But they didn't want to hear about it because they're so tired of hearing about Larson. You know what I'm saying?
But this is what drives me. Appreciate greatness, though. That's what drives me crazy.
Well, that's not that's never been a thing, really.
No, I know. I mean, it happened to Jeff and Jimmy.
I mean, people get tired of it. People want to see different winners. That's why people are excited about Kyle Busch now, right? Well, what? I mean, no, I mean, there's, they're like, they're cheering him because he hasn't won in a long time. If he was winning as much as he did before, they'd still be booing him, right? Like Hamlin hasn't had such a long period where he's fallen off out of contention where people go, oh, okay, we're sorry enough for him. We want to see him win again. So he still gets booed. Logano still gets booed, but like, you know what I'm saying? Kyle Busch hasn't won in a while. So like, oh yeah,
I will agree with you to a point, and you're right. Throughout NASCAR history, guys who were once booed become cheered. Darrell Waltrip, Dale Earnhardt, Rusty Wallace, Jeff Gordon, et cetera, et cetera. Part of, I think, the Kyle Busch thing, though, as well, he drives for Richard Childress Racing, which is a legacy team. And say what you will, there's people that will say, well, he's no longer driving for Toyota. No, he's driving for Chevy. And, they want Richard Childress Racing to be relevant. And I think that's part of it as well, to some degree.
Sure. That's absolutely fair. Well, as you said, let's talk about how Larson got there. I think did you want to make a point about Cliff Daniels or Larson or something? It seemed like you were setting yourself up there.
No, let's move on.
Oh,
no, we can't. I mean, Cliff is great. I mean, this team.
Well, you're like, oh, we'll talk about how he was able to do this or whatever.
Well, I thought you just set it up and then you were going to segue. Oh, you can. That's fine. I mean, to me, this was, when we touched on it, this was a really different win for Kyle Larson, the 5 team, not just here in general, but so often their wins are about just curb stopping everybody, right? Like they just get out in front, they lead an ungodly number of laps, and it's like, okay, it's inevitable that he's going to win this race, whether it's by a mile or he comes, prevails in overtime, whatever. It's like Kyle Larson's going to win. Today was so different. It's like he wasn't the dominant car. I mean, it looked like this was going to be Blaney's race. At one time, it looked like it was Bubba Wallace's race, and then Hamlin was in the mix, and Bowman was in the mix, and it's just like the 5 just kept whittling it down. And it was like all of a sudden you look at it and you're like, geez, they're third. Oh, they're second. Oh, they may win this thing. Like that is so atypical of this team and how they did it. And we've talked so much about Christopher Bell. We've talked about other drivers this year, and it's just the 5 teams just kind of very quietly under the radar. And it's just, they're doing their thing and they've been very good. They almost won Phoenix. This is just, it was just a different vibe today and a different way of getting to victory lane.
To your point, Kyle Larson, this was only his 6th most laps led at Homestead, 19 laps today. This is a place where he's led triple-digit laps 3 times, and another one of those was almost triple digits at 96 laps. So he only led, the 4th most laps overall today. Obviously, Blaney had the most, followed by Bubba and Bowman. Let's talk about Bowman. Alex Bowman now leads the series with 5 top 10s this year in 6 races, yet he still seems under the radar in some ways. Again, we talked about, we didn't think he choked this one away, but if you look at it a different way, it was a pretty good run for him. He had the pole. He was controlling the race. He led 43 laps. And then Jeff Gordon comes out and defends him in the post-race news conference, because obviously there's been so much talk about Larson's job security, dating
Bowman's
back
job
to
security.
Oh, sorry. But yeah, nobody's talking about Larson.
Larson's got no.
Sure.
Larson has job security. I just want to make that very clear. Larson ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, that's for sure. Anyway, Bowman's job security. Chicago win, we think possibly saved his job last year. Yeah. But now Gordon is saying, hey, this is our guy. We're just trying to, it's been talk in the media, all this stuff. What do you think of that? Are they just trying to calm the talk and nothing's changed? Is he still on the hot seat there? What's going on?
All of the above. I mean, you're always kind of on the proverbial hot seat at Hendrick because the expectations are the expectations. Unless you're winning a bunch of races and you're winning championships, there's always going to be scrutiny. And even Chase Elliott right now is getting it a little bit because that team maybe isn't performing to the level that we're accustomed to seeing, right? It goes with the territory. And Bowman, wins a race, makes the playoffs. That's kind of been the path for him recently. But it's not the same level as his teammates. And so there's that pressure. They do like him a lot. He is comfortable there. It's a good fit, but he has to produce. And that's what it ultimately comes down to is if he continues to run like he is, and he's third in points right now, we need to mention that. If he continues to run well in points and win races, he's not going anywhere. His sponsor likes him. They like him. It's a good fit across the board. He does have a contract, we should say, through 2026. He's got a year left on his deal after this. And so there is no reason to get rid of him. But when you go back to a year ago and William Byron is winning a bunch of races and Kyle Larson is Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott has a championship sitting on his mantle and is still, running very well, and you're Alex Bowman and you're flirting with missing the playoffs and you're not doing these things, like that's hard to reconcile. And so that's where a lot of that comes from of like, what is wrong? Do we need to make a change? Is it the driver? Is it the team? What is it? What can be different here? And still, so those questions in. At the end of the day, this is a performance-based business when you drive for a team like Hendrick. And if you produce, you're going to be okay. And if you don't, then that's when it bubbles up. And Alex right now is doing what he needs to do. He's had a very good start to the year. He's winning, he's leading laps and doing all those things. He has to continue that, though. This can't just be like a blip or a stretch. This has to be a prolonged run of success.
Another person who we saw perform today, we talked about Bubba Wallace. The 56 laps led today was his most since Texas 2023. He obviously has not won since September 2022. But this has been a good year for Bubba overall. He's talked about bringing a different mindset to the track. He is 7th in the point standings right now. Both 2311 drivers are up in the top 7 in points. So, he's kind of doing what he needs to do. I thought this was going to be more of a Reddick race if you're talking about 2311. Reddick finished 8th, and we never saw Reddick really sniff the front today. He didn't lead a lap. Where Bubba was carrying the banner for 2311. So, again, something to build off there. Did you see Bubba also told his team on the last lap that he had a tire going down?
Did he?
To prank them. It was a joke, just to scare them.
Well, but it speaks to kind of this looser mentality they have right now where they're having fun. And when Bubba's having fun, they're typically running well. I thought there's a key moment in this race. And I asked Bubba about this afterwards, and I talked to the team about it as well. There was a restart there where Logano and Gregson kind of got into the 23 car, and Bubba got pushed into the wall and got fired up for like a quick second, right? But then he quickly came back down. Years past, Bubba, there's been a tendency where those moments tend to be prolonged, and Bubba gets really riled up, and it kind of snowballs a little bit. And it's like all of a sudden the day that looked like it was going to go well just goes the other direction. Where today, frustration, expressed it, over it, moves on, and then right back to continuing to do their thing. I thought that really speaks to the mind. You wrote about this extensively this offseason going into the year about Bubba. I just think it speaks extensively to the mindset he has now of trying to look forward and not dwell on things when they go
wrong. Speaking of things going wrong, Jordan, yikes, Ryan Blaney.
Oof.
Man, I mean, 3 DNFs. I think I saw one of the stat guys, maybe the NASCAR Insights account.
Yep.
I think that was them.
3 straight
Tweeted
DNFs.
first time in his career he's had 3 DNFs. He has blown up in 2 of the last 3 races, and Jonathan Field from the Racing Experts tweeted, before this season, Ryan Blaney had only 5 engine failures in his entire Cup career, but none since the 2018 Coke 600. So almost 7 years ago. In the first 5 races this season, he now has 2. Pretty frustrating for Blaney because he was really coming here and kicking butt. And obviously, Homestead last year for him, he was going to win the race on the last lap. The Tyler Reddick pass keeps him out of the Final Four temporarily. He's then got to go win his way in and have some more heroics. But this would have been a very nice redemption for him and just more proof of how much he has gained at Homestead, as well as all types of other tracks, because as we'll talk about later, as we're going to talk about Martinsville next week, all the drivers say that Blaney is by far the guy to beat at Martinsville now, right? So Blaney is really, really establishing himself in multiple ways, and this would have been a big message to send if he was able to close this one out today. Unfortunately, as he's running in 3rd place, his engine just goes with no warning. So, but still, I mean, if you're Blaney, he's, what is he? He's 10th in points, but he's run so much better than that. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so I look, there's a few things here. One, this almost kind of follows a pattern of Blaney's career in a sense of like, there's been so many races where you're like, man, he should have won that race. He should have won that race. And something happens, sometimes in his control, sometimes out of his control. And that feels the case. He is a much different driver now than he was 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And he should have a lot more wins. And that, that's the one thing I feel like is just, maybe he isn't getting the right credit, even though he has a championship, is he doesn't rack up a bunch of wins like we have seen a Kyle Larson do, or Logano do at times, or some other drivers. He hasn't had that like just giant win tally or laps led tally. And you're like, man, like this guy's kicking everybody's butt. It seems with Blaney, it's like he'll get 2, 3, 4 2, 3 wins. And then it's just there. And he's like, and then there's a bunch of other races he should have won and didn't. And it, again, like this is a race today, should have won and he didn't. That's kind of been how it's been for him. And why this keeps happening to the 12 team on the Ford side and no one else is a mystery. But Blaney is an elite talent. And when if you really want to know who the best drivers are in NASCAR, you said it. Like, I mean, it's Martinsville and Homestead are probably 2 of the tracks you look at. How do they run consistently at those 2 tracks? If you consistently run well there and win races there, like you're elite. And Blaney has certainly done it at Martinsville. He has certainly basically done it at Homestead without the win. So it's interesting. And I wanted to touch on a different point because you talked about him being 10th in points, and you look at the point standings right now. And I think you tweeted it out, right? It's 23-11, Hendrick and Joe Gibbs Racing have the top 8 spots.
The top 8, including Hendrick with the top 3.
Yeah. And so you look at that and you're like, that's accurate, of how kind of indicative the season goes to a degree. But I would actually put Blaney up there as well if you're going to like start place, because they just haven't had the finishes. And they had 3 straight DNFs, 2 of which, are engine failures. And so this has been a year where it seems like 3 teams or 3 organizations are dominating. But let's not discredit Penske too, because Logano's had some good runs too that hasn't materialized into finishes, and Blaney certainly as well. It seems like those 4 organizations have clearly separated themselves from everybody else, and there is a gap right now, a significant gap between them and everyone else.
The driver who gained the most spots in the point standings, 7 spots with today's race. Do you want to guess?
Can I look at the finishing order quick? I mean,
sure.
You can just tell me. I mean, I feel like we need Jeopardy music at this point. Chris Buescher?
The answer is
Ryan
Chase
Preece?
Briscoe.
Oh, yeah.
Chase Briscoe in 4th. Right. He finished 4th today. He jumped 7 spots to 13th in the point standings.
Okay.
His best finish so far at Joe Gibbs Racing. So Joe Gibbs Racing gets positions 4 and 5 because Denny finished 5th with his new sponsor. Denny's 8th in the points. So JGR showing some positive signs there, but it never really felt like, I mean, I guess Hamlin was up there for a while, but Bell, even before he spun.
Yeah, this is a weird day for Bell.
Yeah, like I think he was running 15th maybe when he spun. And he ends up finishing 29th. And then Ty Gibbs looked like to have one of the best cars in practice. When you looked at the long run speed and the lap averages and stuff, and it was like, okay, here we go. This is where Ty Gibbs turns it around, because it's just been a lot of bad luck. Yeah, they've had some bad runs too, but it's also been some bad breaks, and surely they're not this bad. Ty Gibbs now, Jordan, after 6 races, is 34th in the point standings. The only 2 full-time drivers behind Ty Gibbs in the point standings are Cole Custer and Cody Ware. So this is a big problem right now for Ty Gibbs. So how much are you pressing the panic button if you're Ty Gibbs, if you're the 54 team? It seemed like you brought a fast car and they were the last car in the lead lap. Nothing to show for it. What are you doing right now?
This is going to sound really weird, but from the conversation I've had with people about this, you're not panicking. You're staying the course, because this is part of the rebuilding of the 54 team. You know, they made some big changes on that team. They're changing their processes a lot. Ty's starting to do some different things. And so I'm not panicking. I'm concerned, certainly concerned. I would like to have results. But there are things you can point to and say, listen, they've had a bad luck. They had an issue at Phoenix when they were running well. Lap 1 at Coda, he gets into an accident. And so, yeah, is it bad? Yes. Is the performance not there? Not necessarily. But we are basically going back to the beginning, and we're kind of rebuilding this team up. And so I'm not happy, but I'm also not panicking. I do think that this defines my season in the sense of like, okay, we're done racing for points. Like, we're done racing. We're done chasing stage points. And I think that does help you on some tracks at a Martinsville or a road course, or maybe even a speedway along the way, and how your mindset is. And so in a way, it certainly kind of gives you clear direction of like, listen, if we're going to make the playoffs, it sure as hell isn't going to be on points. We're going to go and we're going to have to win races. But we also, and at the same time, we're going to have to get our performance to be there. I will say, we have seen teams pop up and have struggle and slump, and all of a sudden it's like they find something and they go. When you drive for Joe Gibbs Racing, the opportunity to have that turnaround is much more significant. I don't want to say easier to do, but it's just, you've got a lot of resources there, and you got a lot of teammates to lean on to do this. This is just part of it. And I'm concerned, but I'm not mashing the panic button, like screaming, "Oh my God, we got to do something." You?
Well, I am pressing the panic button at this point. Yes. Because it's just, I mean, to me, it's like you have fast cars. You should be running better. What's going on? Why aren't we running well? It's just, I don't have any explanation for it. I don't know why it's happening. They should be better than they are. They shouldn't be this far off. I mean, this is troubling. This is troubling at this point. So I think to just say, well, they'll turn it around. I mean, okay, you could say that after a few weeks, but again, when you have a fast car and they just, last week was sort of the same thing in a way. And you're just like, man, what's going on? Why are they so far off to start that race? And yeah, it's a weird one for me. Are you pressing the panic button if you are Brad Keselowski, 30th in points, finishes 26th today, and your teammates, Chris Buescher 6th and Ryan Preece 9th? Where was Brad Keselowski in all this? It just seemed like he had another day full of struggles, and he's had a bad start. Are you pressing the panic button if you're Keselowski?
I'm concerned because I in the offseason, I didn't like the direction where the 6 team was headed. It just didn't feel like it was a positive direction.
You didn't like the Jeremy Bullins thing? I liked that. I picked him to make it.
You did. And I wasn't as enamored with that as you were. And we talked about in this podcast where I looked at this and I just didn't feel good about this team. I felt like this team had kind of lost its edge a little bit. You go back a year ago, they started off in the spring really strong. They were obviously won at Darlington. They had some other good runs along the way. But as the year went along, they weren't to that level. And they kind of fell off a little bit, or at least consistently. And I was a little concerned about how this was going to go. I like Jeremy. I think he's a really good crew chief. But his next gen car stats are a little different than what his stats were with the other car. And maybe I'm making too much of that. Maybe it's nothing. And so I look at this, and when Ryan Preece is running well and Chris Buescher is running well, I'm a little concerned about that. There's no reason that this team shouldn't have a top 10 this year. They haven't even led a lap this year. That's concerning. And so there's something amiss there. And I guess maybe you chalk it up to bad luck, but it's not like they're they crash at Atlanta, they crash at Phoenix. I don't know. There just feels like fundamentally something is wrong with this team. And so I am panicked about where this was. And let's not lose sight of the fact that as compared to his teammate, you look at the number of wins that the 17 and the 6 team have had since Brad has taken over the ownership, there's a gap there. Brad's only won once as driving for RFK. It's not like this 6 team has been a level of a world beater. It's where they have like a body of work, and you look at it and say, okay, like they're going to turn this around because that's what they do. Like, no, they really don't, honestly.
Yeah, I don't feel great about it at this point, but again, I picked him to make the playoffs, so he is reuniting with Bolins, and maybe it's just a matter of that working on that communication or still getting the feel that he needs out of the cars. But you don't like to see him, especially if his teammates. If you look at Ryan Preece, who you were bullish on before the season, getting a top 10, and it's like, okay, well, the cars had speed. Buescher's up there, Preece, but they should all be running together. Let me ask you this. Now, I know you haven't, you probably haven't even seen this tweet yet, so not fair necessarily to give you a chance to react to this if you have no idea, which I don't. Kyle Busch tweeted after the race, news tomorrow at 18:51. Of course, we don't know. Sometimes these things could just be a sponsor thing. We don't know that. Do you have any sense of what this is? Because this would be good timing to press the panic button for Kyle Busch, because they were way off today while Austin Dillon for a while was going to run top 10. What happened to Austin Dillon? He ends up finishing 13th. So that's not terrible. But Kyle Busch, now he is, I will say, he is tied for the last spot in the playoffs. So he's in the playoffs right now, basically, points wise, but they don't see him anywhere in the ballpark of running competitively. So is this just going to be some sort of like, Brexit announcement or some sponsor announcement, or is this something where there's more to this at this point?
So if you see me looking down at my phone a lot, it's because I'm looking at my phone and I'm trying to track this and trying to figure this out. I did see this before, try and track it. I don't feel comfortable saying what I think it is because I just don't 100% know. But I will say, look at the numbers in there, 1851. Like what those are numbers that have, been linked with Kyle throughout his career. So I would say it's maybe something related to that. Again, don't 100% know. I don't believe it's related to anything to a contract extension or anything like that. Those conversations are still a ways away, that kind of thing. So I wouldn't expect it anything like that. That answers your question as best as I can.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think typically, I hate to burst everybody's bubble, but typically people don't telegraph when news is going to come out if it's like a significant, like a big breaking news thing, because all that does is alert people like Jordan to the story, and then Jordan breaks it before anybody can get on it, in my opinion. So not to toot your own horn, Jordan, but people are
beep.
But you know what I'm saying? Like people, if it was like, oh, I'm switching teams or something, it's not going to be like, hey, I'm going to let you know when this is happening, everybody. Like I just, it doesn't need to be like that. And so, I think from the sounds of it too, that would be a big departure from tone, because you listen to his interview on Kevin Harvick's podcast. He's, the full length interview. He's talking about how much he's worked more in the last 3 years. He's put more effort in the last 3 years than he has like in his whole career, basically. They're all still trying super hard. They're all still working their butts off. They're putting in an honest effort there. And I just don't think that he would suddenly 6 races into the year have a new deal to give up on. But still, I mean, are you pressing the panic button if you're him now that you've gotten through these few weeks of the real races, so to speak? He could have won COTA, but he didn't. And now it's like, I don't know, they weren't even anywhere close to what we wanted to see today.
Yeah. And I'm kind of hedging here. It's like I can make a case either way. I think Kyle Busch still could win a race. We saw it COTA, for goodness sakes, right? Like he was in position to win a race. I don't think he can point his way into the playoffs. I just don't think. I don't think as an organization.
Right now Right now he can.
I understand
that. For the last playoff spot. You think he's going to fade down?
Yeah, but we're also going to get guys who win races, and that line's going to move up, right? Like, I don't think consistently RCR is going to have good enough cars, because going into this weekend, and I wish I'd looked this up, and I apologize for not, but he was asked in his bullpen session on Saturday about his chances, because drivers with the last name B have won all the races, right? And the narrative is like, can you do this, Kyle? And he's like, no. He was very blunt. Like, that's not happening this weekend. We just are not in the ballpark at all. He was not wrong. And so, like, RCR is not Joe Gibbs. They're not a Hendrick. They're not week in and week out, regardless of the racetrack. It's like, they're going to be good, right? That's just the way. That's not who RCR is right now. And so I don't feel like they can point their way in. But Kyle is still good enough driver to figure out a way to win a race. He almost did it at Darlington last year. He almost did it at Atlanta. And they need to focus on that. They need to get speed in their race cars. If you give Kyle Busch a fast race car, I think he can go do something with it. So am I concerned? No, but I don't want to put myself in a points hole too much and lose too many points on a race like this, or when Vegas, have an issue like Vegas, where it's like we're throwing points away, because I don't want to lose sight of the fact that, hey, I would be nice to, if we can't win a race, we can maybe still get the playoffs on points, because I don't think they're good enough to climb out of that points hole. Does that make sense?
It does. Well, somebody else who is not getting the finishes to go with their results, it seems like. I mean, Carson Hocevar, it looked like he was going to have a really good run today. By the way, before we talk about Hocevar, can we talk about, or I guess he was trying to change his name to Bocevar for the weekend so he could get the B in there. But
the B was silent. The B was silent.
The B was silent. Okay.
The B was silent.
Anyway, so that the video that NASCAR put out, the Grand Theft Auto Vice City,
so good
thing with him. Oh my gosh, like their content has been absolutely insane all year, but this might have been my favorite one that they've done.
Yeah,
like the production quality, the acting from Carson to act like one of those characters with the old video game characters before the movement was as good as it is now. Man, it was so good. Like they put some really good time into that. I watched it like 3 times. I was just blown away because I love Grand Theft Auto. So
did you play Vice City a lot?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course. I mean, you're talking to somebody that got 100% completion on GTA 5, where I had to go find all like the little pieces, and I've been waiting for GTA 6 like forever. By the way, you'll have to take a vacation, or I'll be taking a vacation. You'll be on your own when GTA 6 comes out, because I will not be. I'll take like a week-long vacation just to play that. But yeah, so like for me, this was amazing. But yeah, like it looked like he was gonna have a good run to back it up too, and it just, they had a mechanical problem. He's probably going to have a shot to finish top 10, but it's another week here for him where he hasn't gotten the result. Now he's 27th in points. He tweeted the meme after the race, and on a meme, it says, so here's the plan. Consistency is out the window. It's time like this. We're glad it's winning you're in. So now we have to win, is what he says. So he's saying from 27th in points, he's got to win. Are you pressing the panic button if you're him at all?
No, I mean, this is part of it. This is what Spire is kind of working towards. I mean, they have these fits and starts. They're still trying to rise up that ladder. And part of that is working through this a little bit. I have said for weeks, and I stand by this, is when you have speed in your race cars, which at many times this year they have, you have to make sure you capitalize on it, because it may not be there. You're not a Hendrick, you're not a Gibbs, you're not a Penske, where you're going to be there week in and week out. And so that it's an ebb and flow sport. And for that stretch where you've got speed and you're running up front, you better make sure you're finishing up there. I had conversations with people on Inspire this weekend, and they effectively said the same thing of like, we got to start putting races together. Like, we've got speed in our race car, but like, man, we need to start executing. We need to start putting together from green flag to checkered flag, good races. And they haven't done that yet. That's part of it. The Hocevar thing, it's interesting in this sense to me, is like, yeah, he's right. Like, you can go win and get your way in the playoffs. He hasn't won yet at the Cup level. Still very inexperienced. That didn't matter to Josh Berry. So, maybe it's overblown a little bit. I do wonder, and I'm probably overthinking this a little bit, but we've talked a lot about Carson's aggressiveness at times, right? Over aggressiveness. I wonder if this does something though, where it's like, man, I got to go win. I need to win bad. And you start pressing a little bit, and then we kind of get maybe an overzealous Carson who's made some mistakes, who we've seen in the past, when he gets in that mode can bring a lot of chaos.
Jumping around here a little bit, but as I look at people, Justin Haley, by the way, speaking of Spire, did have, finished off a good run today with a 10th place run. But somebody that else should have been in the top 10 was probably going to be Chase Elliott. And he got this penalty. At first, as I'm listening to the radio, it's making a lot of sense to me, because I'm like, wow, they called a penalty for him being not single file coming to pit road. And then they said, and then he comes on the radio and he's like, well, hey, I was just trying not to hit the car in front of me. And, just have them look at it. He was very calm. Said, just have them look at it. And I gave the spot back, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do there, because otherwise I'm going to clean out the guy in front of me. So I'm like, well, that's a pretty compelling case. And Alan Gustafson's like, of course they don't want to hear it. You got to go get a law degree for this. There's too many rules, all this stuff, right? So I'm like, let me just go back and watch the in-car from the Max cameras, right? So from what I saw, they're all on their way into pit road. Elliott gasses it up real quick to try to close that gap right before to pit road. As he's gassing it up, everybody sort of checks up in front of him, and Austin Cindric is right in front of him. And so he just kind of goes to the left, and he gets maybe like half a car length up alongside him. And he kind of checks up a little bit to give some of it back. But as they enter pit road, he's not like behind Cindric fully. He's still alongside him a little bit. So to me, like, if you're NASCAR, like, I don't think you can say, no, he gave the spot back, if that's even the policy. I don't know if that is the policy. He got out of line. He gained too much ground, and he messed up. I mean, to me, like, so that was a penalty. Despite the very convincing argument on the radio, I think when you look at the video, I'm sorry, Chase fans, it doesn't look good for you. However, that's not great, because, it just feels like this year, Elliott has sort of been this fourth Hendrick car in a way, because Bowman is actually, as I talked about, he has 5 top 10s. He's not set the world on fire, except for today. He was going to potentially win the race. But he's not leading a bunch of laps. I think today was Bowman's first top 5, but he's getting top 10s. Whereas Elliott, you're like, he's 6th in points, but he's not leading the laps. He's not looking like he's in contention like Byron and Larson have been. So what do you make of Elliott at this point?
But this isn't a 2025 issue, Jeff. This is a 2024. This is a 2024 issue. We talked this so much last year. You go back. How many races last year? It was like a 20 race gap between stage wins for Chase Elliott. He was effectively the third banana last year, behind Larson and Byron, who had multiple wins and were doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. And and Elliott's average finish was exceptional. I think it was. I may have even led the series last year. I don't know if it ended up that way, but it was close to the top, if not the series best. I'd have to go back and look. But he was like, it was a really weird year where it was like consistently they're fine, they're running well, they're finishing well, But to your point, they weren't leading laps. They weren't winning stages. They weren't winning races, by the way. He's only won one win in the last, what? He didn't win in 23. He had one win last.
He won the Clash, but you're not.
I'm not. We're talking points.
Yeah,
we're not.
Yeah, he won at Texas.
Yeah, but he didn't win in 2023. He's got one win in 2024, and so this isn't a new thing. This is a continuation of how they ran. And I would even go back even further to 2023. Like it was that, and so you ask the questions of like, what is different? And I've asked these questions and it's like, well, we're working on the processes. We're doing this. Like there really hasn't been anybody to like tell me specifically what is missing. Something is missing though, because you judge the 9 base. If you compare the 9 to the 24 or the 5, they're fundamentally different in terms of just almost every major statistical category, with maybe the exception of average finish. That's alarming. That's not at all how this should be.
Again, going back to this Kyle Busch interview that I heard on Kevin Harvick's podcast, there's a moment where he's talking about his struggles with the next gen car. And Kyle Busch says that he had a conversation with Chase Elliott about the next gen and how he couldn't get a handle on it. And Kyle Busch was, I'm paraphrasing, but he was basically like, is it just me? Like, what am I doing? And Chase Elliott told Kyle Busch, according to Kyle, no, I've had to completely change my driving style and it's totally different for me. And Kyle Busch said, well, I can't change my driving style. Like that's part of my problem. Like I don't know how to do that, to get it to feel how I want to feel. So we have, at least according to Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott saying that he's had to completely change his driving style with the next gen car. And to your point, the numbers essentially back that up, right? Where Larson today in the post-race press conference is talking about how he and Byron, he was saying, have been able to adapt to it better, because I think they were saying that Larson has now won the most, or he's won the most races in the next gen car. So, it's not a knock, but we've seen throughout time where, Jeff Gordon liked to drive a certain way and then they changed the car and he wasn't as good. Jimmy Johnson liked to drive a certain way. He loved to drive loose race cars. And it was a different kind of thing. So, with each era of race cars, it sort of changes who fits what driving styles. And so some people, they can adapt to it quicker. Some people it's a longer learning curve. And to find that comfort that they need, the security they need out of the car. So maybe that's just the case with Chase. We don't know. But again, he's still, he's still running decent, right? Again, he's 6th in points and, but it's just not the winning kind of speed that he has. So
I went back and looked really quick. He did lead the series in average finish last year by a full position over Christopher Bell. But to me, and we get caught up in and you're right in everything you said, but you have to adapt, Chase. Like you have to adapt. You can't sit there and say, I can't, because that's what you have to do.
Kyle Busch said he
yeah. Like, and so, we gotta be careful here. So like, but if you look at it, like we had so much this conversation when we changed over to the old car to this next gen car of like, oh, driving talent, what does it mean? Honestly, at the end of the day, and I know what Kyle Larson said today, and there's some truth in that. Like he probably would have won a hell of a lot more wins, but you look at the guys who were doing well in the old car and the guys who are doing well now, it's not like this huge shift, like Kyle Larson is still Kyle Larson. William Byron was always considered a prodigy and like on this budding talent who's going to break through. Same with Christopher Bell. They're having consistent success. Denny Hamlin has found success. Joey Logano's had continued success. Like there's a long list of guys who have been able to transfer over. And so if this is the reality where it's a driving style that you're not able to adapt, like that's up to you. Like you've got to figure it out some way or somehow, because other guys have done it. Why can't you?
Kyle Larson now has 30 career Cup wins. He had 6 with Chip Ganassi Racing in the first 6 years of his career. So just since joining Hendrick, 2021 to present, so 4.5 years, 4+ years. He's gotten 24 wins. It's pretty impressive. But does it surprise you that he's already up to 30? Like before they said today, like, oh, he's got 30 wins. That was his 30th win. Did that take you by surprise
No.
at all? Or are you like, oh, you knew that?
No, I didn't know that, but I figured as much. If like I had to guess, I would have guessed 30-ish because since 2021, since he's been at Hendrick, he's been a beast. I think his lowest wins is 3 a year. He's been 3.
Mm.
And like they're a beast. They do that. They win multiple races a year. They win an unholy god number of laps and win stages. They have done all championship 4 appearances. It's like you almost want to think they should have more, almost with all of the laps led. And how many times have we talked about the races that they should have won and didn't? Like, this is who they are. Like this, regardless of anything else, the 5 team is going to show up and they're going to be fast. And it's like, and I wrote this in our preview, and I feel like I write this every year. Like, you know what to expect from Kyle Larson. He's going to get 3 to 5 wins minimum. He's going to lead over 1,000 laps. And it's like, and if the chips fall right, he's going to win a championship, right? Like, this is who he is. This is who they are, which is a high praise.
He said in his press conference afterwards, if it was the old car, he should have won 50 by now. But the thing that strikes me about 30 is you start to get into pretty rarefied air pretty quickly. When you start to pile up some wins in the 30s. He already has 2 more career wins than Carl Edwards, who we know just got in the Hall of Fame, and he obviously has 1 more championship than Carl does. But he's 2 away from Dale Jarrett, 3 away from Fireball Roberts, 4 away from Kurt Busch and Martin Truex Jr. So, again, it's everybody eligible ahead of him is already in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. And he's going to, well, of course, we know that, but I'm just saying it's like he's going to move up this all-time wins list very quickly.
And he's won the Coke 600. He's won the Southern 500. He's now got the Brickyard 400. Like, he's won 3 of the 4 majors. He's won, does all of these things. And it's like, this is just going to continue to build and build and build. And you look at like a Darlington, and you look at a Charlotte, like, and in Indianapolis, like, those are tracks that fit his skill set so well. It's like, he's going to have a career. Probably when you think your races in the Cup Series full time, 10 is that too long? Maybe 8. I don't know. But like,
depends if he gets tired of.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just
or whatever.
Let's just say conservatively he races like 6, right? Like, and he's going to win 3 races or 4 races a year. Like, you start adding up, it's like 50 wins is certainly going to happen. It would feel like, and that's rarefied air. And then you got to start assessing, okay, where does he rank? All time top 10.
Well, he won the high limit race on Wednesday in California, and flies out, wins the truck race, almost wins the Xfinity race, except for getting slammed into on the restart, probably cost him, and then wins the Cup race. So seems to be in the groove at the moment. Well, I guess it's time to talk about is there anything else from this race before you want to talk about good race poll or anything?
Are we going to talk about the truck series and the Xfinity series race at all?
Sure, we can.
I just want to give a shout out to Court. I know, like, Kyle, first of all, the truck series race on Friday night was exceptional. Like, that was a great race. I liked it even better than the Cup race. Like, it was really good. It was really, really good. And I just want to point out Corey Heim, and he was so dynamic, and he didn't win the race, but Kyle Larson passes you at Homestead, right? It would have been so easy for a young driver to look at and be like, that's Kyle Larson Homestead. Like, I got nothing for him. He fell back twice. He reeled him back in and passed Kyle Larson. Like, that shows you that Corey Heim is a Sunday quality driver. Like, that was a really, it didn't matter if he wins the race or not. Like, that was a star-making performance for me in Corey Heim, because it was like, he was so good. He kept his poise, didn't press, figured it out, and then he went and passed Kyle Larson not once but twice. Like, that jumped out to me, and I thought we needed to, like, just point that out.
Yeah, well, and also if his truck doesn't shut off 3 times, he wins that race
for sure.
And then we're not talking about the possibility of the Larson sweep anyway, probably.
Sure.
Anyway, so good race poll last week, as you and Dale Jr. were in your low 70s guesses for Vegas. Hey. Both you guys really blew it. I don't know what you were thinking.
Can I just say something? I thought about that. I'm glad I'm wrong. Like, I am, and I'm not just saying that. Like, I liked Vegas. I thought it was a solid. It wasn't the most memorable race, but it was a good race. I'm glad that people responded the way they did. They're like, no, we like this. This is good. Because it goes back to the conversation we had earlier, where it's like, not every race has to have these like craziness or, this or that. It's like, I'm glad that people were able to look at Vegas and say, you know what? I'm happy with that. Like, I didn't get the craziness or that, or like I'm legit happy that I'm wrong.
Well, it turned out to be the number one race of the year so far, 87.2%. So we have tied it. Big Joe Wall sent me the results. I'd like you to know, Jordan, that I've been within 5 points of the correct poll guess 5 times so far this year out of 6. Or no, wait, all 5, right? Yeah, this was the 6th. Oh, no, I guess because they had the clash too. Anyway, well, yeah, I did blow it the 1 week, but other than that, shout out NASCAR. I almost made it through the whole episode.
You did. And then you had to go and say that, and that was a good one.
I hate you. I hate all of you. Anyway, are you ready to make your guess?
Yeah. Oh, I gotta write this down. Yeah. Hang on. I love that our listeners have gotten on board with this, and they get excited as I do when this happens.
No, nobody does. Only you do.
Oh no, the chat lights up. I get my text messages, light up. It's yeah.
Whatever. Anyway, I really don't know how to, because okay, so if it was up to me, this is like a 90% reaction, voting type race, but I just don't think people feel that way. There was too much negativity around it. Like I think people are going to eagerly vote no. Some people now, a lot of people liked it, but that's some more the racing purist type fans. So I might be going too low. I don't want to give mine away as you're writing down yours, but do you have your guess ready? Are you ready to show it?
Yeah, I'm just going to be too high. I know I'm going to be too high. I know I'm wrong. I'm going to be wrong this week. I'm wrong because I am way too high. Oh man, I'm going back to my other. Hang on, I'm still going to be too high. I'm going. I'm still too high, but I'm going lower on my guess now. I gotta go back. I gotta flip back a page.
Okay. All right. Are you ready to show it or no?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do this.
Okay.
82.
Okay. I had 79.9.
Yep.
79.9. You have 82. Yeah. I mean, I think we're around the right range of where it's going to be. It's going to be a close one.
I thought it would go like 84, 85. I mean, this was.
I almost went lower originally. I almost went like 77, but then you said you were going high, so I figured I'd hedge a little bit and protect myself. So
I hope people respond to this race. I really do, because this is, if this, I don't want to make this like an indictment, but if people vote this race really low, I'm just like, it's one of those things you look at and you're like,
but you know how it is. Every time you try to tell people, if the more we tell people,
I know,
oh, you guys just don't get it, this is real racing, the more people like push back and say, you can't tell me what to like. I like crashes. I like this.
Well, the issue I've always had with this poll is there's no race that's ever gotten 100%. So, and
there were the internet. I mean,
okay, but that's the problem with the poll. And so, and then you factor in like social media and everything else. It's like, and there's there was literally people out there who will just say, F it, I'm going to vote no just to be that person. And so that screws up the whole thing. And so like,
I mean, last year we had a race that got 95.8%.
Which one was it?
43,000 people that voted, Kansas Spring.
It should have been 100. There was no reason.
Imagine
my point.
In this day and age, putting any question like, is the sky blue, on the internet and getting 95.8% of people to agree with that. Like, you're just not going to have that. So to me, like, that's just part of any sort of, I don't even know if it's the internet. It's just life. I mean, that's just what people have crazy opinions and stuff. And I'm not saying it's crazy if you didn't like this. Maybe you did. Look, the thing is, NASCAR, in modern day NASCAR, the current fans have been conditioned to like the chaos. You're team chaos.
I am team chaos.
You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people who agree with you that want the chaos, that want the craziness, that don't want to see the best car win, that want upsets and absolute, they don't care. Like it's not about the purity of sport to them. So what do they care if the best car wins and all that stuff, right? So, you know, if I'm sitting here saying, well, I'm a purist, so I liked this, how this race played out naturally, you, team chaos, I'm surprised you liked it. Because this didn't check your box.
It was a competitive race at varying strategies. Like you can't continually have chaos like every single moment of every single race, because then, you know, like the bar is just going to get higher and higher and higher. And then, you know, you're going to end up having anarchy. So
I mean, it's the same people who like, I just don't get these people who there's this guy this week that posted how he always agrees with you and all this stuff. And I'm like,
smart man.
Why? Like, this is the guy you're talking about, the guy that says Lewis Hamilton has a fork in his back, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes out. You're not wrong. Did you see the sprint race this weekend when he won?
That's great. He won the sprint race. He also failed tech. So, I mean, are we sure that his car was legal? Are we 100% sure his car was legal after sprint? I'm just saying.
This is
he's still an elite.
You'd never admit when you're wrong.
He's still an elite driver, but he's not. Max.
He said there's a fork in his back.
Yeah, he's past his prime. He's past his prime.
And people proudly agree with you. That's what I'm saying.
His teammate George Russell has outperformed him. Like that is
not even his teammate anymore.
His ex-teammate in Mercedes, he literally outperformed him. So in equal equipment, we always talk about judging your guys off of their teammates. His own teammate was outrunning him. Like, okay, what am I missing here?
Okay. Well, Martinsville next week. Everybody says it's going to be the Blaney show, so we'll see if anybody can defeat him there. Notice how I chose my word carefully to not make the highlight reel again. What are you going to say?
Blaney's dominance, he's been good in the spring race, but his wins have come in the fall. And so it kind of like it's a Phoenix situation again. Hendrick in the spring race has been really, really good. The fall race, they have been less so. Just keep that in mind.
All right. Well, Jordan, it's your turn again at Martinsville.
Yeah.
So I got to do 3 in a row. Now I have to sit out 2 in a row. Boo.
Come to Martinsville.
But, oh yeah. Okay. I'll just fly on out there and okay.
I'll pick you up at the airport. We'll ride up together. It'll be fun.
Okay. That sounds lovely. All right. Well, everybody, thanks as always for listening. Don't forget. Oh, by the way, sorry, before I go, look what I'm wearing.
Nice. Look good.
I forgot my teardown sweatshirt. Got my teardown sweatshirt.
You got a sweatshirt? I didn't get a how'd you get a sweatshirt? I didn't get a sweatshirt.
What'd you get?
I got the Lemonade Stand t-shirt, and then I got a couple teardown
well,
t-shirts.
Guess what? I don't want a Jordan Lemonade Stand. I'm not going to walk around wearing a Jordan Lemonade Stand t-shirt. So that's for you. No, I'm not going to wear your merchandise. I don't. What people are? I'm gonna be walking around. People will be like, "Oh, who's that on your shirt?" I'm gonna be like, "Oh, yeah."
My really cool, stylish tag team partner.
No. So I got a sweatshirt and I got 2 t-shirts, and then I ordered a hat.
Nice.
From the website shop.dirtymomedia.com. So
check it out.
Everybody, thanks as always for listening, and I will talk to you next time on the Teardown. See you, everybody.